and welcome to another video where I kick the proverbial tyres on Bing Chat. But I thought I'd approach it from a different angle in this video because I wanted to just explore what's accessible through this. So this is labelled up as Discover. You have to be in Edge, the Edge browser, to do this. This is also referred to as, I believe, Copilot. But before I do that, let's just put a bit of context to this, to the task that I'm going to set it. So I'm currently working my way slowly through this particular free online course, which is CS324, Large Language Models. It's on the Stanford website. I'll include a link to it. Within the lectures, which are you just basically read, I'm not sure, I haven't hunted out on YouTube to see if there's actual YouTube lectures to go with this, but I'm doing fine just reading through. There are a number of papers that are referenced, and if you're like me, I have a real struggle with reading research papers. But I figured I would bring Copilot into the mix to help me out. So most of the papers are found on this particular website, but the course itself they're all linked anyway, so you don't really have to hunt them down. But I want to use one specifically from this site as an example. So this is the paper I'm currently working through, Entailment as a Few-Shot Learner. So the first thing you'll notice if you go into this Discover feature and you refresh it, it should give you a summary from whatever page you're on. Now, one thing about this I've noticed, it's very dependent on the page. So some pages behave better than others. At the moment, we're actually on a page or a PDF within Edge. So you can see it's sort of got this PDF viewer, if you like, that it's opened up within Edge. But it's still fine. Seems to work fine with Wikipedia and a lot of other text-based things. Some sites I've seen one or two problems on. And it's hit and miss, and it could be a lot of different reasons why it's doing that. But just a heads up, if you're sort of moving around the web trying to get this to work, at the very least you'll probably have to refresh, and then there's no guarantee that you'll get this summary box. Now that's actually not what I primarily want to talk about, but I just thought I'd bring it up. So you can see here we've got the three modes: creative, balanced, precise. So if you've watched any of my videos where I'm actually using Bing Chat through the website, you'll be familiar with this. Up here we've got Chat, Compose and Insights. Insights really just gives you an overview of the site itself with a few page topics which you can click on to drill down through, and they'll sort of drill down in here. Compose is really just a way outside, if you like, of the page you're displaying to write a paragraph, an email, a blog post, ideals. You can see there's no real sort of bleed over here at all. But with Chat, there is some interesting features which allow this to talk to this. Now, the other thing to remember, to get this to work properly, you might have to go into Settings, and under Discover, which is currently what this is called, you may need to adjust these to get it to work properly. Because I think with the default, some of these two at the very least are off, or one of these two. So anyway, back to the page in question. So suppose I'm having a little trouble with this. I'm going to highlight a paragraph, and what we'll do is we'll work through the different tone of the response and see how they differ, and then we'll loop back round and get another response on the same paragraph for the creative again and see how that compares. And I'm going to capture these all in a little notepad document that I've got off screen. So the first thing you may have noticed there is as soon as I selected it, something did happen. The bar over here moved down because you can see this has appeared. So we'll click send to actually send it to chat. And we've got 4 choices here. And I'm going to go through these in here just to show you towards the end of the video the differences. But let's first of all just do the explain in the 3 different modes. And then we'll probably switch it over to balanced and then go through all of them again as well. So let's do this. We will go explain. Doesn't usually take very long to do this, but it does obviously vary a lot based on how busy the system currently is. And you can see again we've got this copy feature. So it's essentially the feature on the website squeezed into this sidebar, really. And you can see I can drill down further. So it's obviously picking up certain terms in here and asking me, do I want to learn some more? We'll leave that for the moment, because what we want to do is switch the model, switch the response over to balanced, and then highlight. Now, oops, I don't even need to copy it, do I? Because over here you can see it's brought it across again, clicking send. Now, click explain. I primarily use this in balance mode, and if I was doing this for real now, I'd just be working my way down the paragraphs. And where I find this useful is it's almost like a sort of computerized way of interacting with the text in much the same way that you might do that by highlighting and then looking up certain terms that you don't understand. So I find it sort of creates that same interaction experience, but in a slightly different way. Now, I'm not saying, if you find highlighting, doing it manually on a printed copy works miles better for you, then definitely carry on doing it that way. But I find for some reason that doesn't always work for me, and I'm trying this as a different way of doing it. So there we have that, and I've copy pasted that across. So finally we'll try the more precise one, and again I'm going to highlight. Oops. As soon as I let go of the mouse after I've highlighted it, that's when this comes across. Click send, click the sort of thing we want to do. So you can see we always get 4 choices at this point. Now that's not going to stop us from maybe prompting it with other questions if we wanted to do that. So clean this up a bit. So here's our captured text so far. Maybe if we move this around a little bit, so you can see for each one we've got these nice sources as well that have been printed out. But you can see between those three different, whatever you want to call them, fine-tuning models, that Bing Chat specifically uses, we're getting some different results there. Slightly different style and maybe tone to the responses. So let's loop back round and repeat the first one again, the creative mode. Oh, I don't know why I keep copying, it's force of habits. So, oh dear. So we'll send that. The other thing is, if you highlight and highlight again, the box refreshes itself accordingly, which is quite handy. So we'll explain this again, and then I'll copy it into that document I just showed you, and I will splice this in below the same one that we did earlier. And you should be able to see, when I've tried this exercise before, there will be even differences between that. So when you do it within a different time scale, you can quite possibly get different answers. Now the underlying facts seem to be the same, but just the way it chooses to word it is often different. And you can see there, so again, just back this down. So this and this were both produced using that same choice, but you can see the wording of these is quite different. And I would expect that with this sort of model, but just, you know, if you're curious and haven't seen that. So yeah, that was a comparison between the creative, the balanced and the precise. So we went through each one, and then I did creative twice, and you saw there were, you know, differences between them just on the same setting. So let's look at the balanced and then just go through for the 4 different choices so that you can get a feel for how this looks amongst themselves. So I'm going to just rerun this again on balance mode. So we're going to go for explain. So we're going to try these 4 different things we want to do with the text. So we're going to get to explain the text. And you can sort of get some clues as to what it's fine-tuning itself for by sort of seeing what's going on here as well. Gives you a bit of a clue. So that's our first one. Let's just do them and then talk about the results after the fact. So send that again. And this time round, we're going to ask it for a revised version. I'm going to ask it to revise the version. Now, of course, all the time I'd usually be doing this, I'd be diligently copying, pasting these in, because, you know, as soon as you click this, which I'm not going to do at the moment, you know, you lose everything above here. So just be careful of that. Okay. So again, mode, highlight, and this time around we're going to ask it to summarize. But for the ones we've done already, you can notice they have that same basic structure where you have the text plus some referencing as well. And with these, what I've noticed is happening often is the first bit is some sort of summarization of the whole of the text, or it might be split down like this into 2 parts. And then after it, you get these additional sections which are referenced as well. So that should have finished now down here. So that was our summarized version. And then finally, we all do the last choice, which is expand. Now what's interesting is often you'd expect, the summarized version to be the shortest. I've tended to find with a single paragraph there can be quite a lot of differences from what you'd sort of expect, and in how it breaks things down. But generally you are going to see a shorter response, obviously, for where it's summarized it. But I've seen a few results where summarize and the first choice, which I think is explain, particularly if it doesn't have to explain much, can be the same sort of length. And I think you saw probably in the first run through I did there that some of the explanations were actually quite short. So there we have it. So let me go back up to here and maybe bring these across to my document. That's our explain, and then when I'm doing that you can sort of see the difference there. So there's explain, there's the revise, so just up on screen while I'm copying that into my second document. Okay, there is the summarized version. And then finally, the expanded version. There. Now, let's look and see, what if I selected all of this? How's it going to deal with it? So we click send. We'll pick explain, and we'll see if this breaks down into 3 paragraphs, or whether it tries to aggregate the whole thing. So you can see here two or 3 have become 2 in there. Now I did, again, when I was playing around with this a little bit earlier, it actually, when it did this particular explanation, it actually explained each paragraph separately. So again, a bit of variability going on. Now the other thing that's really useful is, of course, and I've been ignoring it to some degree, is down here after you run this, you'll get these. So again, you could put in your own questions around this. But one thing that obviously I'm curious about is, what is entailment within the context of this particular usage. So we're looking for an entailment definition. So according to this, it's a relationship between 2 sentences where the truth of one sentence, the premise, implies the truth of another sentence, the hypothesis. So yeah, logic. In other words, if the premise is true, then the hypothesis must be also true. For example, if we have a premise the cat is sleeping and a hypothesis the cat is not awake, then we can say that the hypothesis is entailed by the premise, because if the cat is sleeping, then it must not be awake. And if you scroll down the paper a bit, you can also see here how within their model they're using entailment versus other approaches to fine-tuning a classification system. And here's another area which goes into a bit more about actually entailment. So again, we could do the same here. And if we were having problems getting our head round entailment, we can send it. And I could summarize this, or I could explain it. Let's explain it. See what happens. Explain is always the one that I tend to go for. But of course, another cool way to use this is to run it through with explanation first and then do the summary. What's this one? What's the difference between entailment and contradiction? Contradiction. Okay. Yeah, that's the other annoying thing. Sometimes you can't see the full bubble till you click on it. If I hover over it, no, interesting. And you can't seem to move this either. You can auto hide the sidebar. So there we have it. I think I'll stop there because you get a pretty good idea, and I wanted to just show you like what to expect when you run this particular feature and the differences between the different choices that you see both within here when you first ask it anything, and as you use the selection feature here, as you've seen, to bring in. If I realise I've made a mistake, as I said, the nice thing is if I click this here, it will, I don't know if you saw that actually changed. I send it, and then I can start to run through this. Try that and see how we get on. I've not tried this sort of thing yet, so rather than go with the choices. So yeah, there we go. We've broken out. Oh. Interesting. What if I do, what is, I'm assuming it doesn't really matter here, if I do, what is ball Q, yeah, so got a bit confused there. I suppose because it didn't really know when I was saying other resources what context it was in, although it did have an attempt to do this. And I'm not quite sure about its explanation here in the web page context. So, yeah. So again, it's good to know how much you have to stay on target when you're using this, and how much wiggle room you get in terms of, wording your prompts. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now. And I'll catch you in the next episode.